I'm Elizabeth at A Literary Princess. If you are new here, welcome. I have a PhD in English literature with a focus on Victorian women novelists, and as you might expect, I love to read. Today I have my July wrap-up for you. So I read 10 books in the month of July. It was Jane Austen July, an event hosted by Katie from Books and Things, Marissa from Blatantly Bookish, and Claudia from Spinster's Library, all about reading Jane Austen and things related to her in the month of July. I only read 3 books that actually counted for Jane Austen. And, well, I finished 3 books. I am in the middle of another one that I just didn't finish. I'd been hoping to read more Jane Austen related things, to be honest, but it didn't happen, and that's okay. A lot of these are library books. To be perfectly honest, I'm kind of going back to that phase I was in the beginning of the year where I don't want to read what I own, I just want to read library books. So, let's jump in. We are starting off with a reread that I actually bought at the beginning of this month as well, and then promptly began to read. This is Funny Story by Emily Henry. I read this for the first time last year and really enjoyed it and decided I wanted my own copy. Lo and behold, the bookstore had it. I immediately started rereading it. This is the story of Daphne, whose fiance Peter goes on his bachelor party with his female best friend Petra and realizes he's in love with Petra and then breaks up with Daphne, who has moved her entire life to his hometown where she is now stranded. But there is an opening for a roommate in the apartment of Petra's now ex-boyfriend, Miles. And these two begin kind of fake dating just to get at Peter and Petra after they receive an invitation to Peter and Petra's wedding. This is such a fun romance, and it's like a really nice story of small town life too. Like, it's not just about the romantic relationship between Daphne and Miles. It's also about Daphne falling in love with the town. We get to see a lot of her job at the library. She's a children's librarian. We get to know people in the town. She makes friends. So, I mean, it goes beyond like just 2 people falling in love, and I really enjoyed it. I had given it I don't know if it was 4 stars or 4.5 stars last time I read it, but I actually bumped it up to 5 stars this time. I really enjoyed it, and it's one that I'm gonna want to reread again, I think. Next is the first of those 3 books for Jane Austen July. This is Lover's Vows by Elizabeth Inchbald. So this is the play that they attempt to perform in Jane Austen's Mansfield Park. Lover's Vows is Inchbald's translation / adaptation of a German play called Der Kindeliebe? Maybe? I don't have it in front of me, so oops. And it is the story of a few people. How to describe it? Das Kinderliebe. There we go. Das Kinderliebe. It is the story about a woman, Agatha, who had a child out of marriage with Baron Wildemheim, and her son now finds out the truth behind his birth, and things progress from there. This is a very interesting play. I enjoyed, like, it was fun. You know, I had a good time. I read it in a day. What is really great about it is seeing why it's so scandalous for them to be performing this in Mansfield Park. Because I've always kind of found that part of Mansfield Park difficult. Because I don't know the play, so I'm kind of bored. But also B, I'm like, because Fanny Price is very against acting in this, and like it's kind of, I'm like, well, how bad could the play be, especially with the lead roles being played by Mariah Bertram, Fanny's cousin, who's playing Agatha, and then Henry Crawford is playing her son. And these two are like kind of using it as like this chance to flirt and like it's considered really inappropriate. And I've always been like, oh, how inappropriate could it be? Like they're mother and son. Like, no, guys, guys, I was like 2 pages into this. I was like, oh my God. It's not that like there's anything inappropriate for the characters. Like they're mother and son, they're hugging and, you know, being like mother and son, affectionate. But for it to be being played by these 2 people who are A, very close in age, B, one of them is engaged to somebody else, and C, they're clearly just using it as an excuse to like be physical. I'm like, oh my God, this is so inappropriate. So reading Lover's Vows really, really gave me some context on that part of Mansfield Park, and I'm really glad that I read it just for that. I would love to see it performed because I always think that plays are better seeing them performed because they're meant to be performed. But I don't think that any theaters near me are going to be putting on Lover's Vows anytime soon, unless I'm going to stage my own at-home theatrical, which is not going to happen. I can tell you that much. But I gave this 3 stars. Like, it was very interesting. I'm glad that I have all this context. Was it my favorite thing in the world? No, but I really do highly recommend reading it though, just so that you can get more context on that part of Mansfield Park. Next one is a library book that I have already returned. This is Game Changer by Rachel Reed. This is the first book in the Game Changer series, of which I had read books 2 and 6 because I'm a completely normal person that reads series entirely out of order. It's fine. Each book in the series, with the exception of book 2 and book 6, which focus on the same couple, but each other book focuses on a different couple, so you don't technically need to read them in order. But you know, I think it definitely adds something. So I decided that I was going to go back and read the other books in the series in order. This is the story of Scott Hunter, captain of the hockey team, the New York Admirals, and his love story with Kip Grady, a young man working at a smoothie bar and applying for grad school in art history. I enjoyed this. It was really sweet. I was actually kind of surprised that there was a fair amount that was different between the book and the show. So Heated Rivalry, the show, is mostly based on the second book, but they have an episode devoted to Scott and Kip, and then they also play a big role in episode 5. Anyway, and the show stays very true to book 2, Heated Rivalry, so I was kind of surprised at how many things were changed around. In some ways I liked it better. Like, some of it was just they had one episode versus this is a whole book, and they condensed, but anyway, I enjoyed it. It was good. I didn't feel the same excitement as I felt for the characters in Heated Rivalry and The Long Game, but whatever. It was a good time. It was a sweet romance, and I had fun. And that's really what I'm looking for with these. It was 4 stars. Did I say that? I don't know if I said that. Next, we have another library book. This is The Murder Next Door, a graphic memoir by Hugh D'Andrade? I don't know. So this is a memoir about D'Andrade. When he was 10 years old, his neighbor was murdered. And this is him dealing with kind of the psychological aftermath throughout the rest of his life. I really liked the art style in this, and it was super interesting concept. I think my problem was I needed it to be longer. Like, I felt like we actually didn't get to sit long enough with any of it, because it's quite a short book. It's only 152 pages, and you know, it's a graphic novel. So yeah, I just really wanted it to be kind of extended. I felt like we just kind of skimmed over a lot of stuff that I really would have liked to have seen more in depth, especially in the immediate aftermath of his neighbor being murdered and the effect that had on him as a child. But it was good. I liked the art style a lot and want to look into more of his works. I gave this 3.5 stars. Now we get to another one for Jane Austen July. This is What Jane Austen's Characters Read and Why by Susan Allen Ford. This is an academic work looking at the works of literature that Jane Austen references in her books and why she is specifically referencing those. I had a good time with this. I did a whole video going through the works that Ford talks about and seeing, oh, which ones of these have I read? Spoiler, it's not a whole lot of them, but you know. These are just super interesting. So we've got each of Jane Austen's major novels, and then we also have a kind of conclusion that discusses Sanditon. And I'm like looking at these, I'm like, which is my favorite chapters? I actually really liked the Pride and Prejudice chapter, which was on reading conduct books and Pride and Prejudice. I thought that was fascinating. And then I did enjoy very much the 2 chapters on Mansfield Park, theatrical nonsense and strategies of performance, and becoming a renter and chooser of books. But honestly, they were all really great, and I had a great time reading them. I gave this 4 stars. It is an academic book. You do need to be aware of that. Like, academic books, you know, they can be harder to read sometimes, but I think it was well worth it to understand the references that Austen is making. Now we have Mansfield Park by Jane Austen. This was the group read for Jane Austen July, and it was my 3rd time reading it. I fall in love with this book more every time I read it. The first time I read it, I didn't really like it. The second time I was like, wow, I actually do really like this. This next time that I reread it, I'm like, wow, I love this. I really, really love this. It is the story of Fanny Price, who has gone to live with her richer relations, and what happens when a set of siblings, the Crawfords, move to the area and kind of throw everything into a little bit of chaos. I really have come to love Fanny as a heroine. I think she's great. And again, as I said, reading Lover's Vows really helped provide context for that part in this book. And yeah, this was 5 stars. It's become my 4th favorite Jane Austen novel, which is really surprising because it used to be my least favorite. And I'm like already excited to reread it again at some point because it's just really good. I think there's so much complexity in this book. And of course, I think people do kind of overlook it because Fanny is like more of a boring heroine than Elizabeth or Emma. But she's really strong in her own way. And I think Austen has a really interesting discussion of class through her as a character. All the rest of the books for the month were library books. So we now have a poetry collection. This is Instructions for Traveling West by Joyce Sullivan. So this is Sullivan's debut collection, and the poems in here are very autobiographical, dealing with her childhood as the daughter of a missionary in Africa, and then what moving back to the States was like, issues with her marriage and dating. It was a really lovely collection, and I'm really glad that I read it. I will be looking out for more of Sullivan's works. I think she's a really good poet. As with any poetry collection, there were ones that I liked more than others. I wish I had it in front of me so that I could actually tell you which ones were the ones that I really liked, but I don't have it in front of me, so there we go. But I gave this 4 stars. I then went for another graphic novel. This is St. Catherine by Anna Meyer. This is the story of Catherine, a recovering Irish American Catholic who has pretty much stopped doing anything to do with religion, with the exception of she still never misses Sunday Mass. She doesn't take communion, she doesn't believe, she doesn't do confession, but she just always feels that she should go to Sunday Mass, and she's afraid something bad will happen when she doesn't. On the one day that she does skip Mass to go out with her boyfriend, she finds that she is now possessed. And we get a bunch of turmoil with that. I really enjoyed this. I loved the artwork. The story is just very relatable. I'm not Catholic, but I went to a Catholic school, and I was raised in the Protestant church. So, like, I get a lot of, even though I still am a Christian, I do get a lot of what is going on here. Like, a lot. Particularly the Catholic guilt. I'm not even Catholic, and I have Catholic guilt. So I found this very relatable. I wanted it to be longer. That was my issue. And like, this is already a pretty long graphic novel. It's almost 400 pages, but I wanted more time with everything. I felt like it just moved too quickly. I wanted the suspense drawn out. So I gave this 4.5 stars. Again, really, really loved it. I just wanted it to be longer. Like, I would have read an entire 800-page novel of this, okay? I would have read an entire 800-page graphic novel of this. I would have read like 1,000 pages of this. I really would have. And I wish it had been longer and just had taken more time. But even just as it is, it's such an interesting exploration about religion, about family relationships, about friendships, and it was just really good. So 4.5 stars. I then continued on with reading the Game Changers series. This is book 3, Tough Guy, following hockey player Ryan Price and his relation with Fabian Sala. I really enjoyed this. I think these two are adorable, like really adorable. And I'm hoping that we'll get to see them in season 2 of Heated Rivalry, but I'm kind of worried that we won't because this story is a little bit out of the timeline. And I think it's more likely that we're gonna get the couple that I'm gonna talk about in the next book. But again, just really sweet and fun, and I had a good time. 4 stars. And then I picked up Role Model, which is book 5. No, I didn't read book 4. Somebody else had it out, okay? I continue my trend of not reading things in order. This is following hockey player Troy Barrett and Harris Drover, who is the social media manager for the team that Troy has just been traded to, and their story. And again, these two are really, really sweet, and I think this is the relationship that there's probably going to be an episode devoted to in season 2 of Heated Rivalry. Kind of like they did with Scott and Kip in the first season. I think we'll have Troy and Harris, because the timeline of this matches up with the timeline of book 6, The Long Game. And Troy and Ilya are playing for the same hockey team. So I think we'll be getting this story in season 2. And I'm excited to see it on screen and in the hands of the director whose name I'm not thinking of right now, because I actually think in some ways the show is a lot better than the books, but I know, blasphemous things to say. I so rarely think that, but so yeah, I'm excited to see what they'll do on screen with this. It was also 4 stars. So those are the 10 books that I read in July. Let me know down in the comments, have you read any of these? What did you think of them? Were you participating in Jane Austen July? What did you read for it? If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give it a thumbs up and subscribe to see more of my bookish content. It has been great chatting with you. I will see you soon. Bye.